welcome to the African Utility Week studio. My name is Amy Ryan and today I have with me Julian Green from Oracle. Welcome, Julian.
Thank you very much, Amy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining us today. Now, Julian, we were chatting a bit earlier around your presentation that you will be giving to some of the attendees here at the show. Can you tell me more about what your main discussion points will be about?
Yeah, so Amy, what we're seeing and what we're talking about later on today is how do we really start to bring the customer into the energy value chain and engage them a lot more? How do we make the right thing, the easiest thing for that customer to do? And what I'm going to be talking about is how you can leverage some of those technologies that are now available and perhaps be more widely used in other industries in the utility context to basically deliver better service and ultimately, hopefully by that, deliver better revenue return from the customer base.
Okay. Now, in a time where consumers are gaining increasing control over their energy use, they're becoming more involved in how they use energy, what energy they use. What are some of the technologies and platforms available to utilities to be able to create maybe some more tailored or personalized services for their customers?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we're actually seeing many technologies emerge because the relationship with the consumer is one that's really changing. And you know, obviously that's going to be affected by different dynamics. Obviously we've got things like people becoming a producer of energy as well as a consumer. And so we really need to understand that customer a lot better. We need to be able to profile them more, to be able to segment the types of products and services that we offer. And so, you know, there's a lot of analytics and profiling technologies that you know, Oracle provides, and indeed other service IT solution providers can produce, that allows you to understand better that customer, to be able to segment them, and then you can target them much better with the types of services that you want to promote. And you know, we've seen some real wins with some of our customers around the world on just encouragement, using behavioral science to actually encourage the consumer to do the right thing. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the industry in general.
Okay. And then what growth do you foresee with regards to these technologies that you've mentioned, specifically within the African market?
So, you know, obviously a lot of the utilities are very constrained in terms of the amount of resources that they have available to invest. And I think, you know, this is not we're not talking a revolution here. There are things that you can do that are quite simple and perhaps collect maybe a little bit of additional information, basically perhaps start to look at information in a broader spectrum rather than maybe just looking at information in relation to you know, how I might want to bill the customer. And you can get some real business benefits from that by actually starting to manage information more strategically and then employ some basic techniques, you know, some basic segmentation techniques, be able to, for example, offer the customer flexible ways to pay, be it from prepayment all the way through to, you know, pay by PayPal or some of the more, you know, internet-based type payments. I think the other thing that we're seeing as well is be able to offer to the customer, you know, a multitude of communication options. You know, people like to communicate in different ways. It makes them feel more comfortable. And so you need to be able to support that with your service provision. I think essentially, you know, simple things, be able to offer the customer flexible days on which to pay, be able to understand through segmentation, you know, the demographics of the customer, be able to identify, you know, are they customers who potentially may be in, you know, energy poverty, you know, are they people who ultimately choose not to pay but could? And you may want to react to those people in different ways and make sure that, you know, if there are assistance programs, for example, that you identify who those customers are that are most likely to react to those assistance programs, and then basically target that. And I think that's also true with things like demand response, and also, as people start to adopt more in Africa, maybe installing renewable generation, be it solar, for maybe small farms and things like that. Maybe they put a wind turbine in. Be able to provide them with a mechanism to help them with that investment, because ultimately it helps the utility, and be able to actually view that as a new business model, a new business revenue stream, because there's maintenance, there's service, and so on.
Okay. And then by using that technology that you've mentioned, how can utilities ensure that each business function is prepared with the right information and tools toward creating a customer-centric model?
So that's a very good question, and I think, my experience working with clients both here in Africa, but also this is actually an industry-wide challenge, and that is that, actually we're probably very surprised by the amount of information that we hold within the utility company. The problem at the moment is that a lot of that information is held for a very specific purpose, and generally, very targeted or siloed. And I think what we need to start to do is to really look at our industry and look at how things are changing. And as a utility, we really need to think about how we manage information end to end across the enterprise, because actually there's huge value that can be had from information that's collected. Meter reading, for example, we think about it from consumption of service to produce a bill to bring revenue in. But in actual fact, that data is also telling you how people are actually consuming energy or water in a particular area. And by using that data and aggregating that data, you can actually start to use that in terms of how you're maintaining assets and how the infrastructure is being used and loaded. And so you can actually tune and optimize cost around that. And so I think the real challenge is we as an industry need to appreciate that as we go through this evolution, revolution, whatever you want to call it, information management and how you process the data that you're receiving is a critical component of how we adapt and change the business.
I think that key word that you just mentioned, information management, will be a critical task for any utility with integrating so many different technologies, renewables. It's you can have all the technology, but it's about what you do with that data.
Couldn't agree more. And one of the things that sometimes we fail to think about is the people change. And that's as we're able to collect more information and we're able to use it in different ways, we need to be mindful that we need to take the people on the journey with us. And that actually is as important for employees as it is our customers. And that's basically achieved through information, sharing, and education. And there's lots of ways that we can do that. And in fact, here in Cape Town, there's a program. They've got a situation here with water shortage at the moment. I was watching the TV last night. I saw a very comprehensive education program being screened out on the major channels that was educating people into the fact that we need to appreciate there is a shortage. We need to be mindful of how we consume the product in this time of shortage, and it's just simple things. It doesn't have to be an expensive program.
With regards to data being siloed, like you mentioned earlier, do you think communication is not being used effectively by utilities? Just in terms of creating that synchronization between different utility departments to
I think I can give you quite a few illustrations of where that is absolutely the case, and here in Africa, the utilities are still vertically integrated predominantly. You know, that's further complicated in some markets through the fact that, you know, service has been unbundled. We've now actually got separate, you know, pipes and wire companies from companies actually dealing with the billing and the management of the customer. But yes, the sharing of information across departments is a challenge for the industry as a whole. I think some utilities are better than others at that, but I think certainly it's something that we need to kind of break down some of those barriers.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, there is a role to play for IT departments in being able to do this, you know. IT departments are providing a service to the business. And so, you know, by really understanding that information architecture that's available and the types of information that's being collected, you know, across the enterprise, they can, you know, very much help to break down some of these kind of operational barriers, if you like. I can throw you an example, you know, just in asset management alone. I was working with a client recently and there was a complete disconnect from new capital works and maintenance. So it was a case of, you know, procure assets which are really cheap, we can do more, we can build more, great. What they weren't mindful of is what the impact of that is in terms of maintenance. And, you know, unfortunately, they're now coming to the conclusion that actually maybe we perhaps invested in some of the wrong equipment and that's now having a drain on our operational budget. Again, you know, analysis across those silos, how much did we spend, how much did it cost for us to do that construction, contrasting that with how much we're paying to maintain, you can start to see those types of visualizations. And, you know, that doesn't require whole-scale system transformation. It's about how do you take the information, how do you put it into a common business intelligence environment, for example, to be able to do some of those types of analysis.
Julian, in your opinion, how can enhanced customer service improve revenue collection, do you think?
So, this is a good question, and actually this is a question, you know, that's very relevant here, but it's actually very relevant across the industry. And good customer, if somebody is receiving good service, you're more inclined to pay for it. It's like you go into a restaurant, you get a good meal, you're more inclined to tip. And so we have to be making sure that what we do is very accurate, it's always right. We're able to make it easy for the customer to do the right thing. And I think that's the thing that I think is really important. We've got to make it easy. I think as we spoke about segmentation, understanding the consumer, understanding their relationship with you, and that's not just how much they spend with you, but really understanding, you know, what their demographic situation is, where they live, how they're supplied, because that's very important. We need to take the consumer and we need to connect them to the grid and understand what is the actual relevance of all of our asset investments in supplying service to that consumer, so that we can actually make sure that the service we provide is as good as we can possibly make it. And I think the other thing is communication. We need to be able to communicate with the customer in the way that they want to receive communication, with timely and accurate information. You know, if there is going to be a power outage, we need to be able to communicate that to the customer, give them time to prepare. In some cases, we can't do that because it's an unplanned event, but at least notify them so that they know that this is the situation, give them some idea of when we're going to restore supply. Those types of things encourage the customer, give the customer confidence that actually we're on top of our game, we're doing the right thing, and so it will help them to actually be more inclined to do the right thing on our behalf. And as I said before, I think, you know, we've got to make it easy. So we need to be able to offer flexible mechanisms to pay. We need to be able to offer them the types of service that is relevant for them and their daily lives, you know. And of course, in this continent, prepayment is a very important aspect of that, and being able to make and support that business as usual, and understand, even though the customer may be a pay-as-you-go customer, we still need to know the customer. We still need to collect the information that's relevant in terms of that consumer and how they're going to consume service from us and interact with the utilities.
Oh, Julian, thank you so much for sharing your insight with us. I think this is, you made some very valuable points on how to engage with the consumer and what technologies are key to help you do that. Thank you very much for watching.